Welcome to The Point of View. This is your favorite current affairs show on television. Here on The Point of View, we pick the right topics, get the right guests, ask them relevant questions on issues that matter to you here on Channel 1 television. It's a special holiday version, Kwame Nkrumah's holiday, and we are continuing our campaign against irresponsible mining. We call it Galamsey as a moniker, but truly it's ravaging many water bodies, river basins, destroying farmlands, and leading to multi-crisis. It's a health crisis, it's a water crisis, an economic crisis, a social crisis. Many bodies have joined the clarion call, and tonight we're speaking to two scientists who will help us appreciate some of the key dimensions of Galamsey. We'll tell you who they are when we come back. Stay with us. So tonight we will be speaking to two scientists to bring scientific and research perspective to this very important conversation about Galamsey. In studio, I have Professor Alfred Oteng Yeboah. He is a member of the Ghana Academy of Arts and Sciences and also a plant and environmental biologist. Is that correct? Good to have you. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you, Bernard.
Later in the show, I'll be speaking to Professor Osei Sampene, who is a pathologist from the KNUST. He's based in Canada for the first few weeks, and he'll be talking to us on the effects of the problem on the DNA of adults and its concomitant effect on newborns. But Prof, thank you so much. For those who don't know who the Ghana Academy is, tell us a bit about the Academy, because when we started this campaign, one source document I used was a press release that you issued December last year, which was pretty comprehensive, 16-page press release. So what is the Ghana Academy of Arts and Sciences, for starters?
Yes, the Ghana Academy of Arts and Sciences is actually, I'll call it a think tank, but it's supposed to be a learned group that provides, if you like, some ideas on policy for government. And it was actually started by the late Dr. Kwame Nkrumah in the late 1950s.
Okay.
The whole idea was there must be a group of people who will go out into the field of various endeavors and provide some substance of information, some kind of information which government would need to be able to provide for the Ghanaian public. And so from 1958 right to now, this academy has been in existence and has provided quite a number of pronouncements which have actually helped to shape our body politic and the, all the aspects of Ghana, education. You just mentioned them.
So which disciplines are we talking about when we talk of arts and sciences? Are there, so does it encompass all learning?
It encompasses all kind of learning. In fact, originally it was Ghana Academy of Sciences. Okay. But then the arts area, has also a large component of information which is needed, and therefore the name was rearranged as Ghana Academy of Arts and Sciences.
So how does a person qualify to be in the academy?
Well, it's something to do with what your contributions have been in terms of learning.
Okay.
Yes. It's a process, you go through before you become admitted as a fellow.
So it looks like a creme de la creme of people who have distinguished themselves in academia,
you can put
particularly in research.
Yes, you can put it that
research.
way. You can put it that way because for admission, we need to have evidence of scholarship. And that is, indicated through peer-reviewed articles that you have published, which are indicating who you are and what contributions you have made in life.
When I look at some of the previous presidents, is that the name of the title?
Yes.
I see some very prominent people. Akila Kwasoya has been there.
That's right.
Mensa Bonsu has been there.
Yes.
Even currently we have Inti, who's there. We've had J. Kwabnen Ketia, Ajay Bequin. They almost seem to be like the most prominent in their fields, highly respected academics of all kinds. So do you guys meet regularly? Is it, how do you engage? Is it just through writing, or are there meetings where you discuss national issues and the rest of it?
Okay, we do have a fellows meeting, and that is done, I think, either twice in a year.
Okay.
To bring all fellows together to discuss issues of common interest to the fellows. But apart from that, we have chapters. And in fact, the chapter which I presently lead is the chapter that looks at environment and so on and so forth. So, and it encompasses both the pure environment itself, a bit of energy, and all these aspects that actually have a bearing on the environment. That's what that chapter is. We also have chapters for education, and we have about, I think, 5 or 7 chapters.
Wow.
All of them are led by very prominent people in the Ghanaian society.
Actually, for the sake of education, if I can have the statement, I want to read some of the key former presidents. Yes, viewers, and probably show this on the screen.
It's at the back.
Yeah, so the initial, of course, Kwame Nkrumah was the second president of the academy, but some of the names I see here include, what do you call it, the former VC of KNUST, Dr. Evans Amfom, Professor Baita, Professor Kwabena Nketia, Professor Alote, Professor F.T. Sai, and of course we have Nana Asakorihini.
That's right.
Nana Professor S.K.B. Asante, Professor Letitia Osei, Obing, and quite Professor Sifat Dede as well. So these people are. So let's come to the meat of the discussion. In the middle of December last year, the Academy issued a statement on legal mining, which you have in front of you there. Yeah. Just give me some background to this. What built up to this? Because this was quite a comprehensive write-up. What was the build up to this?
Yeah. As I said, usually fellows get together and fellows raise issues of concern. And as a result of that kind of concern, a group was tasked. And that group was the environment group. And what they did was to go over volumes of information that have been accumulated over the years to do with mining in general, but specifically the illegal and unregulated type of mining. And so when we thought that the message was apt, and of course the message cannot be apt until it has gone through the fellows. You see, this is how we operate. So this statement that you are talking about, it's not one person's statement, it's a statement that has gone through a process where everybody's contribution has been made. And it's meant to be something which is indicating the desires of the academy towards this particular issue, which is confronting all Ghanaians. And so we think that we have done good justice, as far as the issue is concerned, providing the necessary information which are needed, and we were expecting that whoever were concerned would take them up and act accordingly. And that was since December 15 last year, 2023.
Wow. The preamble to the statement is quite instructive. Ghana is on the brink of an environmental, health, and social disaster as a result of illegal mining. We are rapidly approaching the precipice despite the efforts by successive governments to address the menace. What I find instructive is that this was almost a year ago.
Yes.
Right now, everybody's talking about it.
Yeah.
Of course, this has been on and off. In 2017, we started a campaign, it's gone and on. But what struck me was how in December last year, this was not really in the national media. And yet the Academy said what we are all now saying now, almost 9 months ago.
Yeah. Well, let me tell you that the Academy is also part of the people of Ghana. And we are seeing what everybody else is seeing. We are hearing what everybody else is hearing. But we took it upon ourselves to at least articulate the issues that are really pertinent to the Ghanaian public. And the desire was that, okay, as an academy, we write, we talk, but we don't have any power apart from just an ability to convince whoever takes decisions to do something. And so that was our desire, which we did. I wouldn't say forcibly. We actually articulated ourselves very, very well at a press conference which was organized at that time. And I don't know how to put it, but here we are. Now we have a flurry of all kinds of statements coming from everywhere, which is good, But our desire is this, that here we are, if you like, a national think tank, which is supposed to provide some kind of knowledge of a kind, to the Ghanaian populace. And now that everybody has woken up, it's good for us that we can also come back now and also indicate that we have actually given some leadway, some guidance, some kind of guidance, which we think are very, very prominent.
Okay. You mentioned that you are part of the environmental team. So obviously, the academy has different sectors of focus. So the environmental lead is heading this conversation. But you also recognize that it's a multi-dimensional, multi-sectoral issue. To your mind, what are some of the key dimensions of the Galamsey problem? Of course, we'll come to the environmental, but I just want to know, so there's an environmental issue there. What else is there in this Galamsey or illegal mining conversation?
It's very difficult to determine, but it appears it's like some people have found the Galamsey as a way of a livelihood. And once it is a livelihood, it's very difficult to actually take it away from such people. They are doing it, some of them are not even aware of the effects of their actions, which we need to explicitly bring home to them. And then the economic aspect of a whole nation is under threat, because when you hear about cocoa farms, being overrun, when you hear about forest reserves being overrun, when you hear about other food crop farming systems also being destroyed, and then you add it to the pollution that comes as a result in water, both soil and water, but the most prominent one is water, because everybody can see that that is not water. It looks like cocoa drink, or it looks like coffee. This is the point that is quite relevant here, because now everybody has become aware that we are in actual serious trouble.
But from an environmental science point of view, why is Galamsey so dangerous? We'll be showing some of the images we've seen on the screen as we proceed, but let's come to your area. Of course, you're a botanist.
Yes.
And so you understand plants, but you also understand ecology and some of those things. So give me a scientific lesson on the inimical effects of this on plants, the environment, that type of thing.
Okay, I mean, if I look at it from point of view purely on the mining itself, it's an extractive activity. And for an activity that's extractive, there's the use of chemicals. Now, who is it that follows where these chemicals are going? And what are the effects of these chemicals, both to soil biota and water biota? In other words, to soil organisms and water organisms. These are the areas that are very, very important for us to consider. They are using chemicals to extract, and I'm not sure that they even understand the formulation of the chemicals that they are using. They don't. And this is where the problem really is, because at the end of the day, you may have been able to extract your gold, but then the residue which remains in the soil, the residue which remains in the water, who takes care of it? And do they really know how much of it that has accumulated? So some of these chemicals can stay on for a very long time, and innocent people can just ingest them and they become part of their bodies, creating all kinds of problems, which I don't know to go there, because this is an area which I believe the physicians and doctors are capable of talking.
Indeed, my next guest will go into those.
Okay.
But you talk about the soil organisms.
Yes, and water organisms.
Water organisms.
Yes.
That get destroyed. So those are two key areas we look at.
Yes, and let me explain, when I talk of soil organisms, you will find that there are some organisms that live in the soil which help in making sure that there's fertility. Okay. Now, the functions of these organisms are destroyed. So they are no longer able to produce and generate themselves into situations where they can provide the fertilities that we need. Apart from that, when these things are in the soil, they get picked up by plants, and animals also eat the plants. So you see that the thing is transferred from one level to another. So the whole ecological system, as far as the environmental, terrestrial environment is concerned, is one that has huge amounts of pollution, of pesticides, well, I won't even talk about pesticides at this stage, but these chemicals that are being used would get ingested into plant bodies and which are also eaten by animals. And then for the river systems, there are all kinds of organisms in the river systems. We have fish, and fish feed on plant materials, and these things also get picked up by the plants, they get picked up by the fish, and people pick the fish and consume them as delicacies. In the end, what has happened is that that chemical, which I would say, okay, in quotes, innocently was used by somebody to extract gold, has now entered into a system which is now very difficult even to determine, but which eventually has lots of repercussions on people.
Wow. So this is a long term.
It's a long term.
It's not something that happens for a month and then you get it back.
No. It's a long term effect. And one difficulty is, you see, if we were to be very serious with having gadgets that can determine the levels of mercury or levels of any of these chemicals that we are using in any of our vegetable materials or even human bodies, we'll be alarmed. We'll be alarmed.
I noticed in the statement the Academy, in recommending, said it may even take a decade for some of the damage that has been done. I mean, that is serious. Is it that bad?
Yes. In fact, a decade is considered scientifically as a good period within which you can be sure that whatever effects there were would have actually cooled down. In fact, when you talk to people in the climate sciences, they talk of a decadal period, which is 10 years within which you are supposed to see something happening, something changing. But if you rush within 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, those things will still be in existence, and they still are very available to cause the damage which has been.
Wow. This is serious, and that decade will require sort of allowing the land to regain its natural ecology. So no mining activity, just leave it for 10 years without human. So essentially it's a human activity that destroys the.
Yes, and we are referring to the places that have been destroyed, not everywhere.
Yes, places that have been destroyed.
Yes, places that have been
like somewhere like this.
Yes, the resilience. A place like this, the resilience to get back is gone.
And look at that. So there's greenery, and then next to it is this.
That's right.
Gush of.
Yes. So if you give this a period of 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 years, you see the vegetation coming back.
So don't touch it. Leave it.
Don't touch it. Just leave it.
A decade.
Yes.
Which is why the moratorium that you recommend. For some areas would have to go as long as 10 years.
Exactly. And we are talking of resilience, because you see, these organisms, God is a great God. He created life in a manner as to overcome difficulties. But it's not just one day that the difficulties will be overcome. It takes some time. It's a build-up, gradual build-up. In ecology, we refer to something which is how colonization takes place. It's a gradual colonization process. And with the process of the colonization, you do have resilience also being built in. Now, when you get to that level, then you can say that you have arrived at a situation where the ecosystem has regained itself. Okay, but right now the ecosystem is completely disrupted. The functions of the ecosystem have been destroyed, and we need to get it back.
Wow. And people are in the water swimming. It's terrible.
Well, it's unfortunate, you know. Ignorance,
Yeah.
we say, is not an excuse, but such situations like this, you know, I mean, the people in these areas where they have these children swimming, they should be educated and said and told that, look, immediately that they are swimming here, you may not see any changes in them immediately. But give them about 2 days, 5 days, or even 1 year. You may find that their skin is showing something different. And that's when the doctors get the pains of trying to find out what happened.
Well, we are taking a scientific view on the fight against irresponsible mining. My guest in studio is the environmental lead for the Ghana Academy of Arts and Sciences, Professor Alfred Otin-Yeboah. He also taught and researched for many years at the Botany. It's now called the Plant and Environmental Biology Department of the University of Ghana. When we come back, I'll speak to a pathologist, Professor Osei Sampene. He has been with the KNUST for a number of years. We'll speak to him from his base in Canada because they've been interacting in Ghana in his research in 5 areas of the effect of this mining on newborn babies, on adults, and on people's health. Stay with us. We'll now turn our attention to some pathology. We have a pathologist who has been trained at KNUST, who's been looking into the effects of Galamsey, irresponsible mining particularly, and the concomitant pollution of river bodies and food substances, its effect on pregnant women and babies. We have a pathologist on the line, Professor Osei Sampene. He's joining us from Canada to tell us more about some of the work he's been doing on this in Ghana. Prof, thanks for joining us.
Thank you, Ben.
So tell us about what you do. Are you a pathologist? What area of pathology do you specialize in?
Well, thank you so much. Ben, pathology is a general sort of specialty, and that we deal with histology, meaning that we deal with tissues, and then sometimes we also deal with fluids. We call it cytology, and then we also do forensics. And the forensics is actually subspecialty in pathology, of which I have done that subspecialty to be a forensic pathologist, in addition to histopathology.
So what have you been finding out about the effects of irresponsible mining, particularly on babies who are freshly born?
Well, thank you once again, and let me just greet your cherished viewers and listeners as well. And then good morning to the panel on your studio. Yes, I've been doing some work on babies born at areas where I don't usually call it Galamsey, because if you say Galamsey, then you are trying to skew into some group of people. I see it as something I call irresponsible mining. It can be these group of people called small-scale miners. Even large-scale miners can sometimes be a victim of whatever is happening. And so basically, what they do is that when they pollute the air or the soil and the river bodies as a result of the activities that they do in an attempt at extracting the gold from the raw material that they go to mine, and that when they don't do it responsibly and allow these pollutants to find their way into the system, that is the ecosystem, that is where all these things that I have been looking at comes in.
So what are the specific chemicals responsible? And are we looking at water or the food we eat or the air we breathe?
In fact, they are they are both all of them are intertwined. We are looking at water. Here, we are looking at the air we breathe and then the food that we eat. And so all these three means by which these pollutants find themselves in can either ingest, that is by eating, or inhale by breathing it, or sometimes by drinking from our water bodies here. So when these things are done, these are the vehicle through which these heavy metals can eventually find themselves in the body. And so if unfortunately a mother or probably a father has this bioaccumulation of these heavy metals, it can affect the semen. It can also affect sometimes the ovaries, and then the ovaries of the mother. And then if that thing does not happen as to whether it affects the mother and that of the father to give birth to or to cause formation of a fetus, then if the mother for some reason inhale or eat or drink any contaminated food or water, or inhale some of these things, then it will then find their way into the placenta, which eventually go into the baby and cause so much deformities as I have been already talking about. And that is where the problem is. They do that through the placenta.
Which chemicals are we referring to? Is it mercury? Is it arsenic? Is there a periodic table of guilty metals used in mining that affect these things you've just described?
Oh yeah. Specifically, we are looking at lead, we are looking at arsenic, we are looking at cyanide, and then last but not the least, we are also looking at mercury. In fact, cadmium and chromium are also part of it. And so these are the metals that are usually involved in the DNA deformation or DNA distortion that actually results in the various deformities that we see in these children.
Why do you call it DNA distortion? Is it that it gets into the reproductive system and then changes its makeup?
Exactly. The DNA, I believe that from how I'm understanding it, I think you have some knowledge in science, and that is good. The DNA is the basic unit by which each and every human being or every organism possesses some characteristics. The characteristics can be your makeup, how you look like somebody in terms of your parent and so on and so forth. And then if it comes to the human body, how you see your colleague as a normal in terms of the way the limbs are formed, the way the head is formed, the nose, the mouth, and in fact, particularly all other organs, how they are formed. They are all things that come as a result of the DNA. And so those are the things that the heavy metal will go eventually to affect it and deform it, especially during the first trimester, where in the first 3 months where the baby is supposed to be formed in a very active manner, and that is what happens.
So what are some of these deformities we're seeing? Do you have specific descriptions you can give us?
Oh yeah. Usually some of them are so clear for us to see, especially the deformities of the lower limbs, the upper limbs, the facial, the coccyx, and so on and so forth. But there's other ones that cannot readily be seen, outside. And these are the cognitive impairment that sometimes come with it. And then the internal organs can be kidney, can be liver. It can also be intestine, because it has been proven, or studies have shown that these heavy metals are when they are absorbed, especially in babies, about 90% or 95% are absorbed. And so when they are absorbed in babies, they are not excreted. So they remain there until such time that they do all manner of deformities, all manner of injuries, all manner of pathologies into their bodies, because they'll be releasing them as and when it needs to be released.
Are there any specific areas in Ghana where these things are presenting? Because I know you've been working at KNUST before you went to Canada, and also you speak to doctors in the country. Do we have any zones where this is becoming quite prevalent? Any specific town names or communities?
Ben, it is clear that in Ghana, but let me just correct this one. I'm here on holidays, doing some medical checkup, and I will soon come back to Ghana and to work at where I work at KNUST. In fact, on permission. Here in Ghana, let me come back to this. Here in Ghana, we know the places where these illegal or irresponsible mining takes place. Namely, I have done extensive work in 5 of the regions: Ashanti, Central, Eastern, Western North, and Western region. These are the regions that are noted for these activities in irresponsible mining.
And do we have enough evidence of these deformities to conclude that it's definitely mining related? Because you know that before you can generalize, you need to have a certain sample and some strong correlations. So how sure are you that this is clearly a product of irresponsible mining?
Oh yes, you are right that you need to do extensive work, not only extensive work, scientifically you need to prove and correlate it, like you rightly said. And I have done so by taking samples of these organs where the deformities have been seen. And then you have to take them to approved labs where you can have extraction of these heavy metals from the various organs that have been deformed. And of course, you compare with literature, study done elsewhere, and so on and so forth. And then there are authorities that will tell you by the work that people have done to let you understand exactly what is happening. Because you cannot sit somewhere in your offices and then conjure magic. You only have to also rely on literature and then the work that have been done elsewhere, and that has been proven to be so. And that is exactly what I have been doing.
But apart from infants and newborns, are we seeing effects on the organs of adults? For example, anything to do with the kidneys? Is there evidence that this is beyond newborns and DNA alterations?
Oh, yes. In fact, in the adults, we have standards. For instance, there are standard weight of certain organs. Let me just clear one thing here too. In fact, one cannot also say that some of these deformities that we see, or some of these anomalies that we see, are usually entirely due to the fault or the addition of heavy metals. Some of them, the patient might have been born with it naturally, where both parents have some form of gene or recessive gene that they can pass on to their babies in the course of conception, and they also give birth to such babies, and they become that what we have seen. And then literature has also shown that some of them, we call them spontaneous occurrences. And if there's something spontaneous, we probably have to find out why that spontaneity. Is it that it comes in, as it is, without being caused by anything? And so that is where the problem is. So back to your case, adults, we have a lot of cases where adults' kidneys, those who don't, for some reason, cannot survive or may not be able to survive the devastating effect of whatever may have done. If they die, like I told you, I'm a pathologist. I'm called to organize or do autopsy to ascertain the cause of death and be able to give them death certificate, which is a requirement by birth and death registry before one is buried. So in the course of that, if I see that the patient condition is such that the internal organs are not the way that I'm supposed to see, maybe shrinkages of the kidneys, tumors of the intestines or the liver and so on and so forth. If I don't have it, I can't just come out and say this is just a cancer, but I would like to know what could have caused the cancer. And like I said, I take some of these samples, go to the lab, do extractions of the heavy metal, and most of the time you realize that the metals that come out, mercury, lead, and arsenic, and sometimes cyanide, are the ones that they are actually involved in the mutations of the cells and therefore causing all manner of tumors and then causing the damage to the kidneys and then the liver.
So have you published anything, or has your school or department published anything to suggest that this is an urgent situation that requires a national response? Or is this something that's just now emerging that we are seeing, awaiting publication?
Yeah, well, I've done quite extensive work, and I've done quite a number of papers that are waiting. In fact, has been reviewed by peer-reviewed journals elsewhere, highly reputable journals, and some of them have been published. Others are on the way. I think I have quite a number of them that are going to be published soon. So for me, if for 5 regions, if the Ghana regions are 16 or whichever regions, and I've been able to cover about 1/3, and this 1/3 of these regions are noted for their activities of irresponsible mining, then I think it's worth that the society takes a second look at it and then do something about it.
Finally, what's your recommendation to the authorities? Some are asking for a moratorium on mining of all forms. Some are saying that there should be no mining in forest reserves, also mining near water bodies and the rest of it. From a pathologist perspective, looking at all the discussions around Stop Galamsey, you've already told us you prefer the expression illegal mining. Or irresponsible mining. I'll give that to you. But what's your recommendation to the government?
Well, as my definition goes, irresponsible mining is what I will always go for. And so I will ask that the government, if he's hearing the voices of the people who have actually called for a state of emergency, which is just a matter of stopping the activities of this irresponsible mining, turn around, do introspective of whatever, let's say, rise those people who have been given the license to do. Are they doing the right thing? Supervision must be a bit toughened, not a bit, it should be toughened enough. And then punishment that I have read on on this issue, I realize that they are not deterrent enough. Those punishments should be a bit more deterrent, because if you destroy water bodies that has been destroyed, what it means is that chain goes on. The chain goes in the sense that water is found in the soil. The soil feeds our plants. Our plants feed us, and then the air that we also go into, these pollutants go into, we breathe them. So eventually the human being is going to be the end receiver of all those things that are coming on. So once you sort of pollute land, or you pollute the waters, it's more or less like we being at war, and the enemy has decided to poison our water bodies, and so therefore we are seriously in trouble. So the leaders should actually listen to the cry of the media, the cry of the people who are also interested in making sure that our water bodies are kept clean for consumption. Our food chain is actually reversed to the status where it's supposed to be, so that the human who is the last consumer of all those things, including the human being who is the last consumer of those things, will have a cleaner food, a cleaner air, and a cleaner water to live on. And so I believe that the government should actually listen to them. We are not saying that they should ban mining altogether. Mining, some of them are doing illegally, but responsibly. That's why I said I want to base on my definition of irresponsible mining, where they allowed these villages, they allow these pollutants anyhow to go out of their way. And I have even patients who, in fact, like you asked me some earlier on that whether there's some evidence. Yes, you go to a hospital, Pathological also recording higher number of kidney diseases from children hitherto are not supposed to have it. Pathological is recorded. I believe that all the regional capitals that has some form of Galamsey activities or irresponsible mining activities going on, they are all recording higher number of cases that is not hitherto seen. But that is what is happening now. So I believe that something must be done. Otherwise, we are looking at generational extension, and so something must be done. We should just stop, hold for a bit, and then look at it and see how best we can help them do the mining responsibly. That's what I would actually advocate for.
Thank you, Professor Osei Sampene from the KNUST, speaking to us from Canada, where he's doing some private things, researching into the effects of chemicals in food, water, and also in our soils on the effects of people. This is still the point of view, a scientific view on irresponsible mining as we ask the government to stop Galamsey. We'll be right back. Stay with us. Welcome back. This is still the point of view. We are taking a scientific view on Galamsey. My guest in studio, Professor Alfred Oting-Yeboah, who is the environmental lead for the Ghana Academy of Arts and Sciences, himself a botanist of international repute. You just heard me there with Professor Paul Poku Sampene Osei, who is a medical doctor, but also a professor of pathology. And sorry if some of the images we showed you during that interview were less than palatable. We just needed to let you see the seriousness of the deformities he was talking about in terms of abnormal limbs and babies with very, very difficult medical conditions that he described there in those shots. Now, we've spoken a lot about what is wrong. What is the Academy's recommendation? I think you had 4.
Yes.
If you can reiterate what your key recommendations are and why those.
Yes. We have made, there are many recommendations we would have made, but we decided to dwell on only these 4. The first one is the issue of moratorium.
Okay.
And the moratorium is actually on all kinds of surface mining activities, particularly around river bodies. And this is quite clear because mining near river bodies, I mean, even in our own laws, one is not supposed to, even farming, you are not supposed to go 50 meters, to a river body. So to have a mining situated so close to water bodies, definitely the effects are going to be quite disastrous, as we are seeing now. So that's the first one. We want a moratorium, a complete moratorium on all kinds of surface mining near river bodies.
So you distinguish surface mining from deep underground mining?
We have no problem with deep underground mining. We have had deep underground mining all these years, and nobody has ever complained about water bodies being destroyed, vegetation being destroyed.
In the manner in which we are seeing?
In the manner that we are seeing now. Yes, that is why, because as far as we are concerned, you see, it's the surface mining that has the problem, because it is at that surface mining that you do have all the nutrients that plants will need to grow, flourish, and provide the food sources that we require everywhere. It's again on the surface mining area that you have water bodies, which can easily be impacted.
And this surface mining may not necessarily be artisanal, because some of the people doing it and the equipment they use, they look like semi-mechanized. So I notice you don't use the expression artisanal. You just talk about all kinds of surface mining.
Yes, for the moment.
Yes.
For the moment. We ought to be able to distinguish Because you see, the moment you start using the term, a descriptive term, artisanal,
you take out a large chunk of people who may
yes.
actually be causing.
That's right. That's right. So we just indicate
all
that
kinds of surface mining,
all kinds of surface mining near water bodies.
Near water bodies.
Near water bodies. That is quite
so
clear.
that's point number one.
That's point number one.
Point number two.
Point number two is we want a revocation of all reconnaissance and prospecting licenses, mining leases, and small-scale mining licenses in forest reserves and other fragile ecosystems, such as globally biodiversity areas. We call them key biodiversity areas, but we also refer to them as globally GSBAs. These are areas that internationally are known and recognized on the surface of the earth as situated in Ghana.
So all reconnaissance and prospecting, because it suggests some people go saying they are not going to mine, but eventually still turn the soil and destroy the place.
That's exactly what they do. They as if they are going to prospect, and they don't say they are going to mine, but they do the reconnaissance. They do the reconnaissance. Prospecting, and then eventually they do the mining. But who is there to check all these? Who is there to check all these? So what we are saying is that revoke all such licenses, all such licenses, particularly in forest reserves.
Wow.
Yes.
And then, as you call, fragile ecosystems.
Yes. Fragile ecosystems, you know, those kinds of ecosystems which exist for specific purposes.
Okay.
We refer to them as fragile
ecosystems.
Yes.
Then your third recommendation.
Yeah, the third recommendation is to do with the Environmental Protection Mining in Forest Reserves Regulations 2022, LI 2462. We think that this particular LI is not in good faith, or was not established in good faith. When you go back into the, into law, you ask many questions. Why such an LI was introduced in the first place? Why was it introduced? Who has the authority to introduce such a LI? And it starts from EPA through the Ministry of Environment, Science, Technology, and Innovation. They don't have any legal basis to bring about this LI. So somebody should have been quite observant in Parliament to stop it. But of course, it has been passed by our own lawmakers at their blind side, maybe at their blind side. But what we are saying is that the repercussions on this are so huge, because it's providing an opportunity, an entry permit to enter into forest reserves that are reserved. The term reserved, they are reserved for specific reasons into the future which we do not know. Because we are just in existence here for the next 20 years, 50 years. Another crop of children are coming up who will exist for the next 100 years. And we are destroying these things now, even before they come to see it.
And for this demand, I need to point out that I think this year there was a letter written to the Speaker elaborating on the need to revoke this LI.
Yes.
So there's, I think, a dossier presented to the Speaker of Parliament asking him to lead an exercise to revoke it. So beyond the demand in the press release, there's some parliamentary action that you have initiated.
That's correct.
And your final demand is what?
Well, that one is something which we can say that we will be able to make ourselves available to support. In other words, we want an establishment of a plan for land reclamation in all areas that have been destroyed by illegal mining and other forms of surface mining.
Okay.
And here we are indicating that together with our other colleagues from the different state organizations like the CSIR and so on and so forth, all of us can come in and provide support to ameliorate the damage that has been done to our ecological systems.
So, 4 demands of the Ghana Academy of Arts and Sciences: declare moratorium on all kinds of surface mining activities around river bodies, revoke all reconnaissance and prospecting licenses and mining leases and small-scale mining licenses in forest reserves and other fragile ecosystems, such as key biodiversity areas. 3, revoke the Environmental Protection Regulation LI 2462 passed in 2022, which allows for mining in forest reserves. How Parliament allowed this to happen, only God knows. And beyond this demand in this statement, they've actually initiated an action by writing to the Speaker, making specific demands. And then the Academy is also asking for the government to establish a plan for land reclamation in all areas destroyed by illegal mining and other forms of surface mining. We hope that adds to the pressure that is still being put on the government. Don't forget, the TUC have said if by end of the month they don't get the state of emergency declared, they will go on strike. We've also heard the medical groups make similar demands. Indeed, lots of civil society groups have joined this clarion call for government to put a stop to this madness. This has been another edition of The Point of View with the scientist this time, Professor Alfred Oting Yeboah. I'll call you a botanist, or environmental biologist, leading the environmental team for the Ghana Academy of Arts and Sciences. Thank you. Earlier on, we had Professor, who's also a doctor, of course, medical doctor, Paul Puku Sampinio Say from KN University, speaking to us from Canada, showing us the effects of consuming or ingesting or breathing chemical-infused water or food on newborns and on the health of people. Let's join the call. Stop Galamsey now.